So in Unit 2, we're going to look at the history and use of animals, and we're going to start off with how animals are named. This starts with taxonomy, and it's the science concerned with naming and classification of organisms. Aristotle is credited with the first system of classifying living things. Linnaeus is credited with developing the modern method of classification that we use. And if we start looking at this taxonomy system, we start with a really broad group and then we go down to a really small group. All living organisms are classified using this taxonomy system, and each grouping contains one or more groups from the next lower branches. So we can look at this, and kingdom is the big broad group, and it's made up of phylums. Phylums are made up of classes. Classes are made up of orders. Orders are made up of families. Families are made up of genus, and genuses are made up of species. The easiest way I know of to remember this system is to remember the first letter of each of those words. By King Philip came over from Germany speedily. A kingdom is the highest classification in this. It's the highest category. Organisms are distinguished by cellular organization and methods of obtaining nutrition. So they look at whether they're single-celled or multi-celled, and do they absorb, ingest, or produce food. And then these distinctions make up the 5 kingdoms that we have. And these 5 kingdoms are made up of animalia, which are multicellular. They ingest food and movement like animals. Plants, which are multicellulars and they photosynthesize. Fungi, which are molds and yeast. Monera, which are bacterial organisms. And Protista, which are Paramecium and Amoeba. The animal kingdom has characteristics of being multicellular. They have specialized tissues. They ingest or eat food. They have sexual reproduction, and then they have the ability to move around and go places. Phyla are based on similarities in basic body structure or organization, such as arthropods, mollusks, and chordata. And the subphylum of chordata is vertebrates. So chordata refers to having a backbone or a spinal cord. The animals discussed in this course are all going to be in the phylum Chordata, the subphylum of vertebrate, and have the following characteristics. They're going to have a backbone and endoskeleton. That means a skeleton on the inside. They have a closed circulatory system with a pumping heart, and then they have direct development of the young. The class of animals are based on their body covering, whether they have fur, scales, their reproductive system, and then their temperature regulation. Examples are mammals all have hair, they nurse their young, they give birth to live young. Reptiles are cold-blooded, lay eggs, have scaly skins. Aves are birds, they're warm-blooded, they have 2 legs, wings, feathers, and lay eggs. And then ostracids are bony fish. They live in water, have permanent gills, fins, and scales. We're not going to talk about those hardly at all. Order and family breaks classes into smaller groups with common characteristics. All families are named for a type of genus, ending with IDAE for animals or ACAE for plants, and they're added to the stem of the genus name. Genus simply refers to a group of closely related species. There's 3 criteria for this. Their descendants are all grouped together, they're a compact group, and then they have distinct features within the group itself. As we go on, the next thing is species. It's the basic unit. In taxonomic rank. It refers to the largest natural population that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So if they're not of the same species, they cannot produce fertile offspring. Binomial nomenclature is a system of naming organisms, and it uses the genus and species using Latin. It's simpler to use Latin because it was kind of a scholarly language at the time, and if you refer to it in Latin, everybody knew what you were talking about. The genus is identified first, and the first letter is capitalized. The species is second with the first letter lowercase. Both words should be in italics, and that indicates it's of a foreign language. When we go ahead and we look at an example, let's look at a gray wolf. A gray wolf is in the kingdom Animalia, which means the animal kingdom. It's the phylum Chordata, which animal with a vertebrae. Class Mammalia, animals that suckle their young. Order Carnivora, which is flesh or meat eaters. It's in the family of Canidae, the dog family. Genus of Canis, which is dogs, and the species of Lupus, which is the gray wolf.